bridge collapsed. The mountain road washed out. All the signs are obscured by fog. Your only directions are detours. Eventually it dawns on you. Sometimes you need to get lost to discover where you're supposed to be. Welcome to Merlin's Barn.
Hello and welcome again to Bob's Barn, Bob's Bargain Barn, Bob's Bargain Bin.
Bob's Country Bunker?
Bob's Country Bunker.
Today's podcast brought to you by the letter B.
All right.
Bombastic.
Welcome. Bob what? Bombastic?
Bodacious.
Okay.
Bob.
All right. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Merlin's Barn, broadcasting to you from Fort Blanket, south of the Yukon. Live from Littlestown, PA. No, not live, because there's no way this will be live. And tonight you have myself and
T.
Nicole.
And Matt.
And we were supposed to be, again, and I know that the joke's drawn on long enough at this point, but we were supposed to be, again, doing a conversation with Hot Todd, but I don't know what
Was that
plane.
Ice Storm in Orlando this time?
Yeah, it was probably the ice storm in Orlando or something like that. So,
There's a knocking at the door.
go for it.
Oh, hey, it's Todd.
Like the spirit Elijah, I have come in. Hot Todd Lincoln at your service.
Welcome, Todd. We finally have you on the podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here. Of course, at my age, I'm thrilled to be anywhere. So thank you for having me.
We were all ancient. Well, I guess you and I are the old ones here.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's horrible.
We're trying to catch up.
And we keep
here.
running about the same rate away from you.
Yeah, I'm going to keep running at the same rate because I think the stopping is the problem.
Right.
That's
right.
when I can win.
Yeah. Is this
Wow.
coming down to like who's going to inherit the barn game or something like
We
that?
already know the answer.
No, because T's going to outlive all of us, so.
That's not a guarantee, unfortunately.
We're just going to think that way. So, all right, we have Hot Todd with us this weekend. We have been trying to do this for a while, and we have Hot Todd thanks to the joy of the government furlough. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yes. The joy, the excitement of people sitting around not being paid. That's as far as I'll go into that.
So you bribed him with pizza.
Yes.
Yes.
I was definitely bribed with pizza. I would have come anyway, but the pizza certainly didn't hurt.
The pizza helped.
Never does.
It's really good
No.
pizza.
No.
So, Matt, do you want to go into how we how we have discovered Todd,
So,
other than like selling pencils on a corner or something like that?
I meant to look this up before to see which episode it was. It was an episode we did a while back about Sideshow Gelato.
Oh,
Places
Lord.
That
we
was
call
early
home.
recording.
Yep. It was one
That
of
was
our,
like before the nice setup.
yes.
That
So
was probably old sound.
one of our hard-to-hear recordings a while back. We discussed.
What's that?
Don't do that. Don't do that to the deaf guy.
We discussed this gelato and sideshow entertainment venue shop in Chicago that we were out at a couple summers ago, where in the middle of one of the routines from one of the sideshow performers, Baltimore jokes start coming into play. I think the
Oh,
one about
yes.
the
I remember
Key
that's when
Bridge.
you stood out.
Yes,
yes.
all that was just after the Key Bridge incident.
That was the beginning of my Key Bridge references, yeah.
And it was just like, wait a minute, Baltimore. We know Baltimore.
Why do we know this?
Yeah, I think I may have said something like time plus tragedy is the key to comedy, and that may have been taking it too far.
No.
Not
too
to like
soon.
4 people in the back who laughed.
Right.
Yeah, it was us.
Yeah, then we were just sitting there having a discussion about well, we've got another Baltimore person here, which I always feel like I was abducted to involuntarily in high school, but I'm a transfer from New England.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I'm
just
yet
like-
a simple country folk.
what's that?
I was a county person.
Move your mic closer to you.
This is not my fault. That's where you put things.
Your foot.
Your
But then
foot.
actually it turns out that you're a transplant to Baltimore as well.
Yeah, I grew up in Indiana, and then by way of South Carolina, and then D.C., and then Silver Spring, and then Bethesda, and then Alexandria, and then Baltimore. Yeah, so it was a pretty clear direct route.
Well, that's
Yeah,
good because
very
it
direct.
avoided
Tends to be.
Ohio, so actually that's not bad.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely avoided Ohio. No self-respecting Indiana person would set up domicile in Ohio.
So is it like stepping down or something like that?
It's just giving up, really. It's giving up and resorting to Ohio.
We've just lost our 5 Ohio listeners.
Right.
Yeah.
But they do have a lot of astronauts from Ohio, I hear.
Yeah. That's which makes you wonder.
It's getting out real bad.
What was your theory on that earlier?
Well, it's not only that they want to leave the state, but they want to get an escape velocity from the entire planet because all they know of it is Ohio, and that's enough.
If Ohio is all there is, I'm going to outer space.
Right.
No, I completely get it. And somebody else brought up that theory a couple months ago, too. And I'm sitting there going, it makes sense.
It tracks. It definitely tracks.
So, and folks, we always beat on Ohio, and I have yet to see like a massive defensive Ohio roll in. So,
I mean, if you try to fly into Cincinnati, even they decided, nope, you're flying into Kentucky. Like they knew. Like the
wow.
Cincinnati
You
airport
now.
is actually in Kentucky.
oh my God, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So even people in Ohio are like, are you sure? Like you actually have to make an effort to now cross, not only get here by plane, but then cross state lines by some other means to get into
Into
the city.
We're trying to give you an option to rethink before you actually land.
The
Yeah,
last chance
yeah.
to turn the other way. and
Does
just-
South Bend, Indiana have an airport? Maybe they could just like redirect to Michigan or something like that.
I don't know if South Bend does.
I don't know if they warrant an airport.
They have an AM general plan. I think is about it, and the Studebaker Museum.
Well, they've
a
also got
college,
that
isn't there?
that college
There's
Touchdown.
Notre Dame. Yeah.
with that.
And Touchdown Jesus.
Yes.
Down, Jesus.
I've actually seen that because we were out there and a friend wanted to see that, and we went and found it, and it's like, oh, yep, okay, that's quite the
Is that-
painting.
I don't know if I've seen that. So, Hot Todd's sideshow bit is what?
So it's what I've been listed at recently in the World Oddities Expos that I've been doing a lot of is that you have your set list and someone's doing dance or somebody's doing this. I am the smorgasbord of sideshow,
I
which
like
is
that.
kind of fun.
Is that literally the listing?
Yeah, it's literally the listing.
Nice.
I'm smorgasbord of sideshow because I do some old time strength stuff. I do classic bits, like human blockhead or or tearing cards or leveling axes or levering axes. Yeah, I do a number of different things and even dabble a bit in magic and some pain-proof stuff. And so it's just really a whole bunch of things that I try to cobble together in some reasonable narrative of a show.
So you're like a one-man 10-in-1 show.
Yeah, definitely one man, 10-in-1. And those who are listening who don't know what a 10-in-1 is, a 10-in-1 was a kind of show. It was also called a grind show. When you would go to the carnival, the people selling tickets didn't assume that people would show up for 1 o'clock, a 3 o'clock, or a 5 o'clock kind of thing. And because they wanted to sell tickets, and if the people bought a ticket, they wanted to go in right then. So you'd have the same 10 acts basically like on a wheel, right? And if you went in at what was ostensibly the third act, then you could stay around and then catch up to the third act again, because they would just do them all. They would do them in order all throughout the day and just rotate them through.
Which makes total sense. So people
Yeah.
just walk in whenever.
Right, and
Yeah.
you sell
Yeah.
a lot more tickets. Of course, it exhausts the performer because it is literally, they would call it a grind show, and with good reason, because you're doing the same acts just over and over and over. And
Sounds like teaching.
yeah.
Yeah. that was how I ended up in libraries.
Although kind of inverted, because the fact that while teachers get summers off, that is like heyday for performers. So
Well,
you could do both. You could really go masochistic and do both.
that's my former history department chair. Is that what you're remembering, Tasha?
No, I'm realizing a better way to spend our summers.
Oh, working. It would be much better than fixing Jeeps, honestly.
Apparently, I'd make more money than doing the ghost tours.
Yeah, my first head of my first history department chair at Old Court Middle in Randallstown was a Carney, and what he had done was for years he had done his Carney season, and then in the winter gone and gotten a couple more classes towards his degree.
Right.
So he was this lean fellow who just, if he was not in a classroom, was going through a pack or two of cigarettes.
Sure.
And was just, the great thing was just how lively he was, and just how he just sort of brought that Carney Barker everything right into the classroom. He was also hilarious because he's sitting there going, "Yeah," he says, I'm just your history department chair from attrition." He says, "Everybody else left, and I was the last, and I've got the longest tenure here." And I was like, "What is that?" He goes, "I think 4 years."
Wow.
It was not a good school.
No, apparently not.
But he was freaking awesome.
That was something like I remember an old episode of Night Court with Harry Anderson, also a noted magician and Carney of sorts.
Yeah.
But that Dan LaRoquette's character, who was very upwardly ambitious and that sort of thing, found out that Judge Harry got the job because he just happened to be home on a Saturday afternoon when they called. And so, they called, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll be a judge." And, of course, Dan LaRoquette's character just was, going through the roof, like, "How could you be a judge?" Kind of thing. But, yeah, attrition is definitely a way of getting somewhere.
Yeah, that was how he reasoned that Carney was now running a history department. He also was the reason that for, I think, 2 years straight, we, at least one night a week, and then it was 3 nights a week, we were at the local hole-in-the-wall bar. To the point where they knew when we'd be rolling in and the pints would be lined up for us.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. It got us through. We survived.
Did you?
Part of me did.
A lot of that part's here?
A lot of me has been sucked away by Guinness.
I'm very well aware.
Tons and tons of Guinness and pizzas, microwave pizzas, I think.
My professor in college, it was very funny one day. He was talking about when he had started teaching, and there was something that stuck in his craw about something, and I can't remember what it was, but he was like, "I started teaching in 1972, and and when I did this," it was just kind of this whole rant about things are different and people are soft kind of thing. And I raised my hand, and he's like, "Yes," and I said, "So if you were to take my age, and let's just call it a Todd year," and he says, "Okay," and I was like, "You've been teaching one Todd year, because I too started in 1972. And his shoulders just drooped, and he says, "I'm going to the varsity, and I'm taking medicine." Well, the varsity was the bar. In fact, it was a gay bar that was just right around the corner that had great sandwiches and really nice staff.
Love this.
And so he went over and would have his tonic, his elixir, his medicine, which was a screwdriver. But I just put him in a bad headspace by saying, also adding that no matter how long he taught, it would continuously be one Todd year. So congratulations on your one Todd year career.
Oh no!
Yeah, he was not thrilled.
That's well played.
My school, by my second year there, we were on our second principal, and he picked up on what the library meant. And so he would even get on the Jet Reed, would get on the announcements at the end of the day and go, "All right, so we're having a tech committee meeting at the library at 3:30. I expect to see the tech committee and, well, anybody else who wants to come hang out at the library at 3:30," which, of course, was whatever our new favorite bar was around the corner. And Jet was great because he'd just get to be friends with whatever bar owners.
There was a bar in South Carolina that would stay open later than the bar that I worked at, and it was called Group Therapy.
Nice.
And instead of an open or closed sign, they had in session or cured, which was pretty brilliant.
Nice.
Sweet. That's like New Hope, where my brother and sister-in-law live. My brother-in-law and not my sister-in-law, my sister and my brother-in-law live. My brother-in-law is friends with a bunch of the bartenders, and so if we go out and bar crawl, he generally just heads for the one that they all go to when they're done, and then we just hang out there till 3 a.m. or something like that, which is
perfect. Fun. It's interesting when you brought up the notion of, you would go to that same bar and they would have your pints lined up. I talked to this guy, and he was a real character. His name was Chef Wayne, and Chef Wayne, I'm sure was a chef, but the restaurant in quotes that he worked at was a hot dog stand across from the library in Columbia, South Carolina, and he was a very gregarious New Yorker. He was in one borough, his beard grew to a second borough, just a big beard guy, and he was like, "You know what, Todd? I gotta tell you something, Todd. With the deep gravelly New York thing," and but he gave me a really interesting and good piece of advice. He says, he's worked in restaurants. He's been a fireman. He's been a policeman. He had his badges on the board,
that's cool.
and that sort of thing. But he said, One thing I learned working at a bar is that people will change what they drink periodically. You know, they'll want to try something. They'll have seen something in a movie. They've heard of something. Their friend has suggested something. But he says, what's the one thing that doesn't change about your customer? And I wasn't sure. And he said, their name. So if you walk in and it's like, oh, Merlin, the usual. He says that's helpful in two ways. One, you have a usual, but you're not. It's not in front of you, so you don't feel badly if that's not what you want. You know, but also when he said it, everyone, all the rest of the staff would know that you're Merlin.
Oh,
and
there
then,
you go.
And
That's
then that
smart.
way they could say, "Hey, Merlin, good to see you. Do you need anything?" And like you feel really comfortable, and you're going to keep going back. So it would foster warmth and give you the option of changing your drink because the name doesn't change. And it was just it was a game changer.
Yeah, no, this was this one. They definitely I swear Lou called ahead or something like that.
Right.
And I'd get out of the Jeep and walk in, and the Guinness would be sitting on the counter for me.
Not bad. There was a restaurant down there called the Capital City Restaurant, and it's no longer there. But there was a guy named Paul, and is it called malocclusion when your jaw sort of juts forward? You know, like a pretty severe underbite. I think it's malocclusion.
Sure,
But he had that, and I mean, he was the straw that stirred the drink. You know, he just ran that place, and I would see him zipping around, and he put up with nothing. You know, like you could not misbehave in his restaurant. And then you had like the kind of, it almost seemed like a cartoon or like a stereotype in some ways, because there was a very, you know, soft skinned, roundish white dude that would handle the register.
Yeah.
Whereas Paul, being African American, would just like keep the place running. And I saw Paul off campus one point, and he was buying a vanity plate for his car because South Carolina was only a rear plate state.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Hey, Paul, what are you doing?" He's like, "Buying a license plate for my car." And I was like, "What kind of car you got?" "Cadillac." "That's awesome. What color is it?" "Burgundy." "Well, I think that one would work right there." And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm an art student. I wouldn't lead you astray, man." And he's like, "All right, then." And he bought it. So from that point forward, I would get pretty much the same thing. I walk into the restaurant, he sees me, and he would put his chin up. Mm-hmm. And if I nodded, I'd actually already ordered. Like we were on that.
Oh, that's too cool.
That gesture of a thing.
That was like, I think the best bar that I had a regular experience with was J. Patrick's in Baltimore. Anybody else here ever been to? No.
Mm-hmm.
So J. Patrick's went out, sadly, oh Lord, probably 17 years ago or something now. And it was a real Irish pub. It wasn't a fake one transported from someplace. It was down, what's the neighborhood right by Fort McHenry? It's not Federal, but it's just...
It's not Fed Hill.
No, it's not Federal Hill. It's literally right next to Fort McHenry. You can see the big concrete towers. In fact, you could see them from J.
Is it Sparrows Point?
Yeah, that's at Sparrows Point. And like his ceiling in there was there were ceiling tiles, and then there was heavy duty plastic black garbage bags nailed into the ceiling because he was trying to keep the uppies out, as he put it.
Ah, right.
I mean, you walked in, and so the ceiling was like some places there were areas where it was like, is the beam giving way or something like that. Almost any night you walked in, there was live Irish music. Of course, Michael Collins and the whole gang were hanging above the bar. And there was a shillelagh up there.
Just in case.
Yeah, and there was a side door where the kids would come in and place and pick up food for their parents and cigarettes and whatever else that you shouldn't be doing nowadays, but it was an Irish pub.
Right.
So he was... and he used the shillelagh to sort of keep control in there. Yeah,
and it's great. Like when you get into... But I mean, you know, like when you get to know the folks at a restaurant or you get to know the folks at a bar, and and it becomes community and family. Like there's nothing quite like it.
He always, if we got in there and somebody had taken our table, he was apologizing, and it was and his son was actually a teacher in our school system.
Oh wow!
Because I walked in, looked in one day, I was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "Well, it's my dad." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, I just remember coming in one day. We'd get in right after school, and there's a group of people have our corner table, and he's out there apologizing, and then he's carrying on about how he tries to make the place look decrepit to keep the uppies out, and no matter what, they keep pouring in here.
Right.
Yeah. So, on the topic of the evening,
why
don't we start off with what led you into the sideshow world?
So specifically sideshow, I had started off, I mean, a lot of my life seems like I pull a thread and just sort of see what happens.
Literally, yeah. Get that.
And I had grown up in Indiana and then went to an arts fellowship thing for a summer in Michigan, in Saugatuck, Michigan, called Oxbow, where I'd gotten like an arts fellowship thing for the summer. I had a little cabin and a studio, and then met somebody that taught at the
islands.
What's that?
I swear I was looking at one of those at one point. Was that on one of the like islands just like off of Michigan, like on one of the lakes?
No, I think this one was just it abutted Lake Michigan, and we had a little lagoon that was shaped like an oxbow, and that's why the facility was called Oxbow.
Got you.
And it started off as a summer retreat for artists and that sort of thing, but then eventually came under control or was sold to the Art Institute of Chicago, and so they would have summer school there.
Oh, cool.
And they would offer these fellowships to surrounding universities, saying like, hey, if you have folks that are doing really well, like we need folks to hang out and work this event or work the summer. So every Saturday morning after every Sunday morning after we'd have hellaciously decadent read, as in getting blind drunk the night before, we'd have to wake up and like turn over all the rooms in the inn, which was super exciting and great. So we'd put Wildlife by Talking Heads on and just like, all right, we're doing the thing. All right, here we go. But that being said, yeah, so it was put on by the Art Institute of Chicago, but it was like you could either canoe or take a rowboat across the lagoon, and there was a dune, and then you'd walk up the dune, and there was Lake Michigan.
Okay.
So it was a very cool spot. Yeah, but what was really interesting too about that spot was, we had a widow's watch in the inn, and the inn was interesting because I think it had been built or added on to at different times, because there was like a small library on the second floor, which you took 2 steps down into on one side, and then single step up to go to the rest of the building. So it was just this kind of
that's cool.
wonky place. And if 2 chairs matched, well, no, they don't, because someone would then paint it to not match the other ones. And we had a wraparound porch, and but I actually saw, for the science folk, there was something that ended up being a multi-year, probably even multi-decade debate between a friend of mine and I, because they would have the Perseids, the meteor shower, during the summer, and because you're out by Lake Michigan, you could really see them. And so we're sitting around and we're looking at this thing, and it's college, of course, and there's illicit materials being passed from one person to the next, and it was like, I'm sitting at a lagoon, I'm not driving anywhere, I don't have any really responsibilities, I've never really been much for this, but like we're watching meteors by Lake Michigan. This seems to be so fine, pass it around, and that sort of thing, and so anyway, though, there was one meteor that skimmed across, and we heard it skimming across and left a dust trail in the sky. And so I told my friend about this years later, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna call bunk on that." And I was like, "Yeah, but except I was there and I heard it and I saw it." And he's like, "I mean, I would have believed you if you had said like you saw it and then a bit of a delay and then heard it. Like that makes sense to me, but that's not. You said it was immediate." I'm like, "Yeah, it was immediate." And he's like, "Yeah, that doesn't work. Speed of sound, speed of light. They're at odds." So multiple years later, he sends me an article. He's like, "Okay, you might be right," but apparently NASA had done a study because people talked about this phenomena. And he's like, "But first, let me ask you a couple questions. Like, were you near a body of water, like a decent-sized body of water?" I'm like, "Well, I hear Lake Michigan is a great lake. It's big."
Really?
And he's like, "Right." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Superior.
And was there any kind of electrical equipment or anything? And I was like, "Well, we did have like a PA system that you could, hey Todd, so and so's here to visit, and like reach all the places, and had speakers around." And he was like, "Okay, yeah, this could work." So it turned out that a meteor burning up in the atmosphere emits heat waves, and heat waves travel the same or very close to the same sound or same speed as light.
Yeah.
So there's not as much of a delay. And what we were hearing wasn't exactly the meteor, but it was the feedback from the speakers that was created by the heat waves from a meteor.
Oh my God.
Which is crazy. And then I told him, I was like, "Oh man, thank God you sent me that article, because for years I thought it was the pot that I smoked." And he's like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I was like, "You didn't ask me about that."
So John, that's our excuse for all the problems on the audio. It was meteors.
Yeah, meteors. Okay.
Definitely meteors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely meteors.
And the shutdown. That's also to blame.
Yes, and the government shutdown.
But you were actually asking how I got into Sideshow, which, of course, is how we started talking about meteors. But
Yes, it leads directly into it and then
Right.
bounces around the atmosphere and comes back.
Right. So the way I got
I
into
think that's
Sideshow...
how we got to the island, at least. Or not the island. You thought it was an island.
Right. So
We're on Lake Michigan.
So I ended up going to meeting a professor from the University of South Carolina, which is where I went to school. Then met somebody, got married, moved to D.C. We're getting closer, right? And then when that crashed and burned...
We're not rushing, so we're good. We're good.
Okay,
shape,
good.
yeah.
So I wound up going, like, once you've moved to a place with somebody that you haven't grown up in and you don't have any roots, you got to find stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to a place called the Palace of Wonders, which was in Washington, D.C., and it was a show bar in terms of, like, aerials and sideshow stuff and burlesque stuff and
Oh,
just,
cool.
you know.
That's really
And it was kind of a row house that they had taken half of the second floor off. Like, so there was a hole, and you could actually, if you were on the second floor, you could actually, like, look the aerialist in the eye, which was a really unusual vantage point.
Yeah.
I mean, the stage may have been, 6 foot square, if that. I mean, it was a very tiny, very intimate setting.
Wow.
And but a lot of fun. And so, I went from occasionally going because a friend said, "Oh, I'm going to be doing this Elvis thing, and there's going to be burlesque folk." I'm like, "You had me at Elvis thing, so I'm definitely there." But he was hosting the show as Elvis, and then went and kept going because it seemed like my speed. Particularly convinced when I saw a belly dancer cutting a birthday cake with a sword. I was like, "Yeah, this is where I belong," and started becoming a volunteer at a lot of the shows. And I was called Default because I don't drink. I don't, other than that time in college and Meteors, like I don't really take illicit substances, and I don't try to take over a show. Like I was I was the straight man. Like, "Oh, I can do this. What do you need from me?" And not without any ambitions or agendas. And so, to the point where one of the people there started calling me Default because I was the default volunteer.
Oh no.
If they didn't have anyone else, like, well, we know Todd's going to be fine, so we'll bring him up. And there, I don't know if did anyone ever use Foursquare when that was a thing? The app Foursquare.
What was that?
Nope.
Foursquare is where you could check into various places.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
then if you checked in enough or more than anyone else, you became mayor of that place.
Oh,
And-
I haven't heard about them forever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. But
that's
that was a
so-
thing, and ultimately, I became mayor of the Palace of Wonders because I would check in. I would go every weekend. Right, that was my
That's an awesome title.
yeah. Well, so then it
You need that
became
on
a
the back
matter
of your van,
of that the Palace of Wonders was going to merge with the Red and the Black, and so it was going to become the Red Palace, and so they had a show to sort of say farewell to the palace and welcome to the Red Palace, right?
Yeah.
And so they thought the mayor should say a few words, which was me. And I'm not an actor. I've never done theater. I've not, and so they're like, "Do you want to say a few words?" And then, pull that thread. All right, I'll try. And given the fact that I spent a good amount of time in South Carolina, I was able to slip into a good South Carolina accent and be the politician doing a stump speech for the Red Palace. If you like the shows, you should go to the shows, because if you don't go to the shows, well, then you ain't going to have any shows. And, well, then what are you going to do for entertainment? You need to go, because if you're not going, then where else are you going to go? Kind of thing. And then looked over and grabbed someone's beer, and it was like, and it's like, as you would, a carny would always like take someone's beer and take a sip. And I was like, "Oh, my friend, it looks like the economy's hit you particularly hard. I'm not going to even touch your backwater beer," kind of thing. And that kind of thing. But it was great. And I had a lot of fun with that. And then as a result, there was a new burlesque troupe that was forming that needed an MC. And they're like, "Do you want to be our MC?" And I did one of those things where I sort of pointed at myself and looked around like maybe they're talking to someone behind me. But it was me. And I was like, pull the thread. All right.
Yeah.
So I started hosting shows and realized that as much as you want everything to work well with every show, it doesn't always happen. And so there are costumes that start to fall apart, or props that are not where they should be, or the music track doesn't start when it should, or something.
Props especially.
So you have to extend your introduction. And one way I thought I could do that was learning a few sideshow items so I could have things in my pockets.
So you could just start filling in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So you could be
yeah.
primed to
Right. So it's like, okay, I can do this
Smart.
quick little magic trick, or I can do the human blockhead where I hammer a nail into my nose for whatever reason. And I mean, there are definitely
That's
times.
fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And I mean, there are definitely times where the act lent itself really well. Like we had somebody that was going to go from being a a flight attendant to the captain. Like that was their transformation. Their final reveal was the captain's hat with propeller pasties as being the captain of the airplane, which was adorable. But their music didn't start right away. And they were starting in dead center in the stage, which is the worst because you're just sort of stuck. And so I ushered her back and I said, well, it turns out we're having a bit of problems up here in the cockpit, and we'll let you know when we're ready to take off. So if at the moment you can go ahead and put down your tray tables and pull out your eating material, and just kind of kept going until I got a thumbs up from the sound booth. Well, it looks like we're ready to get this bird off the ground, so go ahead and put those tray tables back up, and we'll let you rejoin your in-flight movie, Final Destination, right? Which they would never show on an airplane, like not even a little bit. But
No.
but that was fun, and that worked out. But having things but then I realized, there's more to it than this, like using it as a stalling mechanism. And I really enjoy the challenge of it, or like pushing your own limits, or your own getting yourself out of your comfort zone, and how you can use it to build narratives and get people involved in that sort of thing. So it kind of started becoming its own thing as a result of just sort of dabbling in it to have it in my pocket.
That's a neat sort of roll in too. Now, did you have like specific mentors or anything like that? Or?
I did. I mean, right now I have, I would sort of credit two main mentors. One is a Pennsylvania native. His name is Chris Ryder. Goes by the stage name of Hercules. In that he has pulled a Lamborghini with his hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Geez.
I know of who you speak.
Wonder what shampoo he uses.
Yeah, extra.
Something with really strong bonds.
I was going to say it also has extra hold, but the
Gorilla glue? No.
right. But yeah, he's also someone I refer to as a darn big Viking. I mean, he is. He fills up a door frame. I mean, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
And we often have these like he's does feats of strength and when someone wrote the book on something, he's literally written books on like bending horseshoes and tearing decks of cards and things of that nature. And I've been working with him for a number of years now. We have weekly sessions where we, do it either, we used to do it by, which is now defunct. We would do Skype sessions, but now it's like a, kind of a video call, and he'll coach me in that regard.
I didn't realize Skype was dead.
It is. They just killed it.
Just this, like in the last 5 months or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Very recently.
So we have that, and then my other mentor, who kind of really got me started, and I still talk to all the time, is Harley Newman, and also who lives in Pennsylvania. So Harley Newman's tagline for many years was the professional lunatic, but
I didn't know we could do this for a living.
I guess no one did, and he did it. So, but his Harley is really big on the story of the thing. Like you can do a feat and that's great, but it's like, why are you doing it, and why should the audience care, and can you get them involved? He often refers to a theatrical experience, or if you're doing a show somewhere, as the sandbox that we all are playing in.
Oh, I like that.
And it's really nice, and I definitely feel. I took that message to heart. Like anything that I'm doing, I either want to have volunteers, or I want to involve the audience, or I want to make them feel happy or excited or better than when they came. I mean, that's the point,
That was something you were talking about when we were having dinner before this, was how you build the volunteers up.
Yeah, so what I've been doing recently is very tangible. I will give the volunteer something I refer to. It's like, so I do this blockhead thing, and the idea of like, now you too have become a real sideshow performer because you've helped one.
Could you explain for the for the audience who probably has not seen it
what the blockhead is?
Yeah, what a blockhead is.
So the human blockhead was originally performed by Melvin Burkhart of Coney Island fame and all that, and he wasn't the greatest boxer. I mean, he did a number of things, and he was a boxer, but not a particularly great one. And so with that in mind, he had a particularly, his septum was pretty deviated, and he could put large nails up his nose. And he would take a hammer and tap the nail, and it would go way up into his sinus cavity and seemingly disappear. And Robert Ripley from Ripley's Believe It or Not said, man, to do this act, you must be a blockhead. Ergo, the Human Blockhead Act was coined. That being the case, in doing the blockhead, I'll have somebody come up with, I'll do the nail thing, and then I'll will say you something like, "Oh, you bet I bet you think you've seen it all, but this is an all," and really push the quite literal point home that ALL versus AWL. I'm looking over right now at a very angry Tasha about that pun, but
Yes.
but
It's
so
my evening.
yeah, so
Like-
Angry about it. On Sunday I laughed out loud at it.
yeah, because and I would tell the audience, like, if you know tools, that is a great joke, you're right, and then did I do the I'm going to conquer comedy thing when you were there by finding somebody in the audience who starts to giggle a little bit, but then you keep explaining it to them. And then you don't let up, and you just keep looking at them. And I'm going to keep explaining this joke because AWL versus ALL is pretty funny. If you know tools, it's amazing. And then they start laughing out of being uncomfortable, and thereby you've won comedy, winner and still champion, right? So do that. But then I have somebody come up and help hold the all, and then I do what I do with that. And then I was like, this is where we freak out the squares, and I actually like go back and forth with my nose on the all and not leaving, and so. People get squeamish, and I say, well, you've helped a sideshow performer, so now you are one. Just one rite of passage, and that's you get to clean the tools, and they're like not excited by it. Because by cleaning the tools, it's basically licking it clean, and they're not down for that, which I can understand.
Yeah.
So in lieu of that, I give them I volunteered for Hot Todd Lincoln, and all I got was this really cool button.
Which is awesome.
Oh, I love that.
And it's like I haven't, and every time I say, well, I haven't really judged the ending out, but the sentiment is true. Thank you for being on stage. And I think that certainly, greases the wheels for any other volunteers because they realize they're going to be rewarded. They're going to be applauded. They're going to leave with this fun little button. They're not being made fun of or picked on.
And you'll eventually be able to put a button on that bit. You'll find an ending for it.
Yeah, but I also like the awkwardness of like, you get a button because the second and then third one in, people are already Pavlovian. And I'll say the button, and they're like waiting, and as I say button a second time, they join me. So like there is a nice connectivity of that. I mean, it doesn't always have to be slick and suave. If people like appreciate and they're in on the joke or in on the ritual of it, then do that. The other thing that Harley and Chris and I have all talked about is that there are definitely things that can go off the rails, and if you're able to accept those and move with the show and let it go in the direction it wants, then it's going to be that show as opposed to a show.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, right, every show you do should be cookie cutter, the right level of expertise and that sort of thing. But those aren't the fun ones. Those aren't the, I mean, we were talking about at dinner, the show that I did where we had the sign language interpreter.
I like that story.
Where I asked her if I needed to do anything differently than I needed to do, and she said, nope, just pretend I'm not here, which I took far too literally. Because at some point the microphone cut out, the cordless microphone, the one that you can put on a charger for 78 hours and then will still go out in the middle of your show. It just is that's just what they do. And so I looked out into the audience and I said, can everyone hear me? To which she responded, no. Oh, right. Sign language interpreter. And it was just like little pockets of laughter that became a bigger pocket of laughter. Then everyone laughed. And has now been my go-to story of like when I feel like the audience and I are a little bit distant or are not on the same page. It's like, let's humanize this. And there was that time I was doing a show and there was a sign language interpreter, and it goes pretty well.
I think something I've noticed, probably with all the acts that we've seen come out of Sideshow Gelato, is that everything comes back to being very human.
Yeah.
Everything's so like they make it, all of you that we've met have made it really playful.
Sure.
And very comforting and inviting to be a part of.
I mean, I would dare say that it's kind of counterintuitive to have gone to a gelato place and have like the darkest, most torturous act that has ever acted, right? Like, I mean, are you sitting
that's
there?
What I'm there for. So.
Well, I mean, sure, but it's like, I mean, like, oh, now my gelato has like salt water because I was crying the whole time,
It's not just salted caramel.
Design the right gelato that's supposed to be flavored with the salt of your tears.
Salted caramel.
And flavored with the blood of your enemies and that sort of thing. But
I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. So like, it was the environment also dictates a lot of what happens, right? It's like it's not at some haunted attraction. It's not, it's like and I think the crews that I worked with were always good natured and wanting to have a good time, and then also the audiences, because of the size of the place, were more intimate, so it's easier to make that kind of connection. It would be hard to do a show, I'm assuming, at like Madison Square Garden and connect with everyone in the audience. But if you have 20 folks in front of you, then it becomes very intimate and very personable.
So how many do you have? What's like the largest audience you deal with?
So I've done some shows at the State Theater, just one that comes to mind down in Fairfax, or Falls Church, Virginia, rather. And so, where they have like a balcony of seats, and then there's like different sections. There's the bar section and the main section, and then like a section on the right that has tables, and so there's a lot of different things. So when I end up at a venue like that, I decide to split them into tribes and then have them compete with each other. And it's like, bar people, how you doing? Like upper deck, how we doing? And so like they all of a sudden they belong to a clan, they belong to a tribe, and they get to compete with applause.
Yeah.
But I think, it's like the way I would approach audiences is that to try to include everyone, I would talk to people in the front, I would talk to people in the back, I would pick somebody in the middle, so that no one feels particularly like they're excluded or even safe from being talked to or addressed in some way. That being said, I'm also firmly in the mindset that if somebody doesn't want to be on stage, then I'm not pulling them up on stage. I think that's not, at the most basic level, it's rude, and I don't want to be an asshole, but also it's certainly not going to yield the best show if somebody's up there and they don't want to be there.
Or if they're terrified. Like I was definitely the kid who was terrified my teachers were going to call on me.
Sure.
Because audio processing issues.
Right.
And they slowly realized that I was picking up on things about 5 minutes after they'd said them and stuff. So I sort of walk into those. I sort of walk into shows like, please don't pick me for anything because I'm going to be up there and not be able to hear anything and be totally confused. You can go up there. You're fine.
Now,
Apparently.
so the thing, though, that can happen, and this will be a visual thing that we can explain, but if you're sitting next to somebody and you kind of point at them, then often the person that's pointing at the other person is the one that's chosen. And
that's what I do. That's what I do as a teacher.
Right.
I get some kids sort of pointing at the other one. I'm like, yeah, you're it.
Well, and one, you kind of win over the audience because people like to see people get busted, and not in a way of like, oh man, that was so funny. The guy next to me got arrested. That was hilarious. Like not that, but it's like, oh, they were trying to point to their partner and they got picked instead. That's funny. Like they love that little comeuppance.
Yeah.
So you've ingratiated yourself to the audience, and then on the other hand, the people that are trying to volunteer their friend are clearly watching the show. They're engaged. They're having a good time, and so they're going to make good volunteers because they're like, okay, you got me, and it's like they're sort of an aw shucks about it.
That's fun.
There was something that I noticed. There's a difference between like doing a show, like when you came to Sideshow Gelato, there were, you were your group, and there were other groups that came different amounts of people, but I did a corporate gig one time at a law firm's holiday party, and I realized like the rules change in a way, because if they're saying like I need a volunteer, and they're all saying choose Kevin, let's do Kevin. I'm in their house. They're all one group.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm going to use Kevin, right? Because that's their party.
Oh wow.
And because it was a law firm, I've watched enough Matlock and those types of things that I felt like I could get away with this. But I said, I saw this guy who immediately put his head in his hand, and started like,
oh no.
And I walk over and I said, sir, you realize you are surrounded by officers of the court, right? And he's like, yep. And I was like, so I'm going to ask you a few questions and you have to answer them honestly. And I've got a few theories on how this is going to work, but let's go through the questions. Are you ready? And he's like, yep. And I said, there is one thing in mind here, that you are Kevin's friend and you are feeling secondhand embarrassment by everyone picking on Kevin. Or, and I think the more likely scenario, is that your name is Kevin and you feel picked on by everyone else. And remember, you have to tell the truth here. So the question I have for you, sir, is what is your name? And he was like, Kevin. And I was like, terrific. Come on up to the stage, and there was no cross and there was no move to strike or anything. So it held. I mean, but to be fair, Kevin was also I can't say former Marine. He was just an inactive Marine because there's no such thing as a former Marine.
No, all my Marine friends, they're still Marines.
Right. So, but he was also wearing a kilt, a bright red shirt, and yeah. So,
What a guy.
I mean, like, of course I picked him. Look what he was wearing. You know?
Pick me!
Yeah.
So I have a question about,
Yeah.
about the mechanics of this. So we've talked about something like Sideshow Gelato, a scheduled sort of gig like that, or you said about the corporate gigs that
Right.
you're booked specifically for that. How does the audience? How do you work with an audience at something like the World Oddities Expo? You have the audience is much more fluid. You have people coming into the middle of the act. You have people leaving in the middle of the act.
Yeah.
You're competing with
Yeah.
a lot of noise and sound and activity in the surrounding room.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. You know, like work the room you're in. You know, I mean, there have definitely been shows where it's been like a very quiet stage, and you're up on stage, and thereby like people are really quiet because they're taking it in like a theatrical performance. And then I worked the Nevermore Haunt during the Halloween season, and that is, you know, I mean, if you're wondering how you're doing as a performer, just work a haunt doing sideshow outside in Baltimore, because you'll find out. They'll tell you, you know, like if they're entertained or not. And I've gotten suggestions, some good.
Baltimore has a very specific ways of showing that.
Yeah, well, and Baltimore also will be entertained regardless if you're the one to entertain them or not.
Oh yeah.
Like they'll either if you show them where the entertainment is and you make them laugh, great, you're doing well. They're still going to have a good time even if it's at your expense because you're a terrible comic or a bad band or something, you know. But yeah, in terms of the expo in that regard, like I've watched other performers like, where are you going? And it's like I don't like that because it's putting emphasis on somebody leaving your show, which I don't think is the way to go. But also I think that
It feels needy.
yeah,
I don't know how else to explain that, but it just feels.
yeah, I'd rather focus on the ones that are sticking around,
Yeah.
and then, you know, but yeah, you do hear sounds like in this particular one in general. I mean, it also New Orleans. We were with the Villain Arts show, like the Villain Arts tattoo show was in the same hall as us, which is unusual. Okay. So sometimes their stage stuff would be loud and competing with our stage stuff, or you know, throughout the day, it's like with the people that are, you know, wanting to compete for Day's Best Tattoo, come and sign up. So you have those announcements throughout the day during the shows. But I mean, I've always found that if I can use something that's going on in the background, then do so. Like I was at an outdoor show, and there was a blacksmith sort of across the clearing, and I made and it just worked out that I gave a punchline of some. You know, it's like you may have thought you'd seen everything, or you'd seen it all, but this isn't all. And then all of a sudden you heard ta-ting from the anvil. And I was like, ladies and gentlemen, the blacksmith, you know, kind of thing. And he looked up and I was like, that was perfect timing. Can I just start pointing to you when I make a good joke and you can determine if you're going to give me the ta-ting or not? And he's like, I'm on it. And so like you use that environment. So like, so sometimes it can really work well and other times it's just distraction. But again, that does fall into the category of that show versus a show. You know, when things go off the rails a bit, or I mean, in Atlanta, at one of the World Oddities things, they had a concession stand of sorts, and they basically were taking they were closing, and so they were taking all the platters and all of the equipment onto the freight elevator. And I literally made a punchline, and someone dropped a platter while on the elevator. And so it was like, you know, and it was like, see, this looks like a duck, you know, and it's like, well, that's a great noun for, well, because you saw with the axe, you know, I have a weighted axe that I will lever down without bending my elbow. And because with the additional weights on the side and profile, it looks vaguely like a cartoon duck. And it's like, so while this, you know, while a duck is a great noun for this, it's an even better verb. Because if an axe is coming at your face, you should
duck.
That's correct. And I was like, so, you know, when I was like, you should duck. And then you heard ka-clang from the elevator. And I got that on video. So I was like, well, that'll make the highlight reel. Because that happened, that made it that show as opposed to a show where I would just deliver the line.
Yeah.
So. And I think that's part of becoming seasoned as a performer, of using the loudness of the expo or the people leaving or other people coming up. It's like, you haven't missed a thing, come on over. In fact, if you want to catch up, you've now volunteered, you know, so you can use everything. Everything becomes, you know, if you're all together playing in the sandbox, then everyone's invited and they can join in whenever.
So you do. Go ahead.
I was saying, I think that all together in a sandbox is great because you've taken what could be just an exhibition or a performance, and you've made it into a community thing.
Right. I mean, we were talking about this at dinner, but there are sword swallowers and there are other performers that do a very specific thing. I mean, I'll use sword swallowing, but there's Captain and Maybell, for example. Our Captain Chris Steele swallows swords, and he's one of the best I've ever seen. And he does an act that is so beyond the pale in the fact that he calls it the scales of justice, where he takes a sword that has a bar going across the top of the blade, not the pointy bit, but the back of the blade, I guess, where the hilt would be. And then it's a long bar that has a space for two chains, and hanging off of the chains are halves of cinder blocks. And so he'll stand up, and while that thing is in his throat, lift the cinder blocks. And it's like, you don't need any commentary because you're seeing a thing that is outrageous. But if you see somebody walk up and it's like, I have 15 swords on this board, and they swallow one, you have an idea what's going to happen with the other 14.
Juggling.
Right?
No.
Wait, no. It's like maybe a Ginsu commercial or something, but it would be funny. But yeah, so like there is certainly that aspect of things where. To make it a performance or a demonstration, I mean, a demonstration is a really good way of saying it, because what that means is you have done this skill and you've been honest about your ability to do that skill, but it doesn't mean that you've been entertaining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Or engaging in some way. It's like, okay, well, I saw the thing. You said you were going to do the thing.
Then I want you to do it more times.
Yeah, and then now you're going to do it again, and I already know what's going to happen with that next sword that you've picked up. I mean, it's funny because like there's certain things like ripping phone books at this point. Not only are people don't understand they don't get the reference, like they don't know what they are. I mean, for the longest time, it's like, oh, cool, you printed out a chunk of the internet. I'm like, why would you do that? But also, the size of phone books have gone like way down, because no one's paying for listings in phone books.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like Mythbusters when they did that whole Mythbusters episode.
Right.
They have, what was it, the two tanks trying to pull them apart? I mean, those were like, 5-6 inch phone books or something like that.
Right. I mean, the Manhattan phone book used to be like huge, and it's not that way anymore. I mean, I still have a stack of phone books, but I don't really want to spend the time to develop an act and take them on the road, because no sooner would I get the act done and practicing for that act than I'd be out of phone books and wouldn't be able to get those anymore.
Well, it's sort of like
eBay them by now.
Yeah, but again, like, do I really want to? Do I want to spend money for a printed out portion of the internet?
Yeah.
But a lot of people are using like. McMaster-Carr, I mean, not McMaster-Carr catalogs, but like different catalogs that are a little bit tougher, and also like the printed catalogs are still the same size.
I have tonnage of Kaiser Willys catalogs here because of the which is a Jeep parts manufacturer.
Sure.
Cases of those.
So they would be rugged, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I should probably give you some to experiment with.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
There's a lot of metal bits inside of them.
We did
and
the
then they'd
Uline
be
catalogs.
pretty-
Yeah, Uline
I
catalogs.
keep getting Uline catalogs. I don't want to. It's like I order off your website.
I don't need
I've
your
never
catalog.
ordered through the catalog. Like, I don't need the catalog.
Well, the other thing too, like with those, it's like the Mythbusters thing when they did the phone book.
Yeah.
Like there are ways that it could be quote unquote faked, right? Like you fold it in such a way and you just sort of tear each page, like you do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But my coach, I'm sure he's lost count of the gazillions of phone books that he's ripped, and it's more of a shearing method than trying to like fool anyone. I mean, the difference between sideshow and magic and strength work and magic is that magicians are making you believe something happened that didn't actually happen the way that you perceived it.
Okay.
Whereas strength work, like when I rip a deck of cards, I've ripped a deck of cards. I don't cut a seam in there. I don't do anything to alter the stability of the cards. I just take them and grip them and rip them.
Yeah.
There was a show I did where I bent a 60-penny nail, and this guy, I used leather wraps, and I brought the nail up under my chin and was able to bend the nail.
Yeah.
And like one hit to sort of get it moving, then reach across with one hand, start to close it, and then sort of interlace my fingers and use the heels of my hand to close it completely. And in the bender world, I mean, there are people that have made like a sport out of bending nails, and if you can do it and you can somehow be faster at doing it, then there's going to be a sport associated with it.
Look how fast I bent this.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
And so, like, they'll do that, or they'll do any number of things, or, like, But this guy at the show was like, how did you, so what did you do? Like, what did you use? And I was like, well, I mean, I use leather wrap so I wouldn't puncture my hands. He's like, no, but what'd you use? And it took me a while to realize that he thought I must have, like, distracted them somehow and put, like, a metal pipe inside of my wraps or inside of my hand to have that mechanical advantage to actually bend the nail.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so what did I actually use? And, like, in addition to the wraps, and he's like, yeah, like, now you get me. And so I was like, all right. And I looked to one side and I looked to the other, make sure no one was around. So it was just a secret that I was telling him. And so I looked at him and I rolled up my right shirt sleeve and flexed my forearm. And he touched it and he was like, oh, shit. I was like, but you're right, I used something else. And he's like, what? So I rolled up my left sleeve. And he's like, you know what? Yeah. In fact, if you're going to use one, use that story over the Spite story. That's a better story. It won't get me in trouble. But
Yeah, that's fantastic.
but yeah, so like at that point he got it, right? And but again, it's those things. And I think too, we were talking about this also earlier, that where my coach Chris Ryder is like a big guy, so they know it's going to bend, but just how fast is it going to bend and how bent is it going to be?
Yeah.
Mine is a lot more of a surprise, because when I perform, I'm wearing like a vest and a tie and a long sleeve shirt, so it's not like this over one shoulder leopard print like
Behemoth
wrestling
wandering in.
Yeah. Not one of the bushwhackers from wrestling or something, right?
You don't come with like a club. And
Right.
It's like one of my friends from college. I never knew his real name. We just called him Doss, and he was just a 6'6" barrel. And if he was working his way across, I just remember one time we were going to go meet down and have drinks and stare off at the St. Mary's River, and he decided he wanted something to sit on, so he just pulled a park bench out of the ground, and it's just walking through this. I see him walking through the cemetery with a park bench under his arm. I'm like, oh. And another friend caught up, and we're looking. I'm like, I'm glad he's on our side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a guy that I went to when I worked at the bar with, and I felt badly because he was just a big dude. And he was very strong, and he would work at and what made things even better, I don't know, is that he would spend a lot of time working with a blacksmith. So,
oh, wow.
So it was like getting stronger, which is not at all what he needed. But since he was a big guy standing behind the bar and moving, he would just bump into things and break things just by sheer size.
That's like my thing that I've learned from years and years of just metal fabrication. Like I took over a school theater program, and was buying plastic clamps and stuff like that for things we were working on, and I'd just be like pumping one of them along, and then it would snap into a million pieces, and then realize that I'm not allowed to buy plastic anymore, because if I buy anything plastic that I have to squeeze, I'm just going to destroy it, because you're operating on a different level than apparently the average person.
Right. So I went to, there was a thing at work. I work at a museum and had helped lift a vitrine, like a plexiglass bonnet that goes around exhibits. But we were doing it in a way that probably wasn't the best, but we were trying to do something, and my both elbows like got really stretched in a weird way.
Ow.
And so I went to PT to kind of have them help me steer in the right direction. And there's this item that they have, which is like this, it's almost like a column, I guess, a longer cylinder, and that it's fluted in a way, but not inside, but outside. So it's convex.
Okay.
Like, so there was this blue one, and he was like, all right, we'll start by bending that. And so I put it up there and like, whap, 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 whap. And he's like, huh. And then he gave me a red one, and he was like, try that one. Whap, 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 whap. And he's like, huh. And I'm thinking like, oh, I did it wrong. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, what am I? And he was like, hold on a second. And so he calls the intern over, and he was like, could you show Mr. Gardner how to use that? And so she took the blue one, and it was like slow movement. And then could you try the red one? And she kind of like, all right. And like, straining to do it. And it's like, good. Hand them to Mr. Gardner. And so I got them, and it's like, show her what you did earlier. And I was like, okay, still thinking I'm doing it wrong, and just went whap, 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 whap. And she was like, Jesus. And I was like, oh. And they're like, and you're here for your elbows. And I was like, yes. Sorry, I don't know. Yeah. But then they asked like what I, kind of the same thing. Like, what do you do? I was like, well, I do old time strength stuff. I don't know if that's, and they're like, ah. And then it was sort of fascinating because they had me bring in playing cards and various things. Meanwhile, like while I'm trying to get PT on sore bits, like I'm bending nails for them and ripping cards, and they're like, "Oh, well, this muscle going with that muscle. Oh, that's really interesting, and how that's So it became like a mini, like, thank you for attending my TED Talk, known as my therapy session. Appreciate that.
I think that'd be probably a great point. That'd be a great point to end it on.
Okay, great.
So, you guys have anything else you want to throw in on, or?
I'm just really happy we finally got you up here. This has been
Yeah,
an
me
awesome
too.
evening.
No, I've been hearing about the legendary barn, and I'm thrilled to finally see it. It's a wonderful space.
Hopefully, when you're in the area, you can come up for one of the get-togethers. And
Sure.
I think it would be absolutely wonderful to get you up here again to do another episode of.
Oh yeah,
with
no,
us.
there are plenty of stories from the road.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about upcoming events or projects.
Oh
or things.
yeah, actually,
Please.
please. I'm glad you remember that, because first off, how can people find you?
So the easiest way, I'm a very frequent Instagram poster for Hot Todd Lincoln, just as it sounds.
And
No spaces.
And when we get to this show, we'll also put up a what is it when you put up when you put up a post on Instagram and invite collaborators.
Yeah, we'll certainly collaborate
We'll
on
put up
that.
a collaborative post that'll tag Todd in.
Yeah, so there's that. And then as far as events coming up, so this probably won't be posted within the next week. So
I think I'm going to aim for. I think it'd be fun to put this one up in December, honestly.
Oh, okay.
So let's just
at that
say
point, I'll have worked at the
December-ish.
haunt, but come to the Nevermore haunt the next year. I do in Baltimore City at the Nevermore haunt. I do a lot of sideshow at front of house. So
Okay.
before you even go into the event, into the haunt, I'm doing shows and some crowd work stuff outside.
And do you know what you're doing, like coming up the 2026 season?
So I'll be doing a lot of World Oddities Expos events.
Okay.
I think they have 37 dates.
Holy crow! Okay.
So, and thus far, I know I can do, at least for now, there are 2 that I can't do. So I'm looking at more than half the year of being hither and yon.
Wow.
And so coming to a city near you, most likely. But
So-
then the other thing, hopefully by this point, hopefully by December, and in the coming year, my novel will be available for issue.
Novel?
Yes.
Yes,
Do
Todd.
tell.
Sometimes I do words good. No,
Sounds
the
unique.
so I've written a novel. Write what you know, right? And again, pulling a thread where I'd written various plays before, like kind of quick 3-act radio style plays, and it occurred to me that it's like I really want to try writing a novel. So I sent a note to a friend of mine who I know has written, and I said, I want to write a novel. And she's like, great. Have you written stuff before? And I sent her the plays. And, because I said I wrote these plays, but have you written a novel before? No. Oh, okay. But I sent her the plays, and she's like, okay, so tell me what the novel's going to be about. And so she was kind of on board. And so I sent her an intro. And this was really funny, where when I sent her the intro, she said that what happened was she was reading it at her house, and her husband was in the room, and they're both on their computers in a very contemporary, like not, someone's not knitting and somebody else is reading the paper. They're both on their computers tapping away, and she reads the intro of what I've proposed, and it was like, that asshole. And so her husband's like, who? Like, what happened?
Drama.
And so she handed the computer over to him. And it's like, yeah, I just got Todd's intro. Read it. And so he read it, and he's like, this is actually pretty good. And she's like, yeah, and he's never written a novel before. Asshole. and so that was very encouraging. So I would send her the next chapter and the next chapter, always hoping to live up to the asshole ranking. But so that went really well. But ostensibly, it's the leaving one venue and going to another venue. So leaving Baltimore, Maryland, the Auto Bar, and going to a place called the Regal Beagle in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and preparing for a show there. But it's all the stuff that happens in the middle. Both I refer to it as both the actual miles as well as the spiritual miles on the odometer of your psyche, right? Like
which ties in, when you were mentioning it earlier, which ties into the. I think, how many episodes are we in now on the Alaska trip?
4.
Yeah, 4. And so much of that was just like the bits that are happening. It was 3 episodes before we even got to the Alaska Highway.
Right.
Because just all the little bits that happen along the way that just build up.
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to come back another time and talk about the novel.
That'd be
itself.
awesome. Yeah, I was going to say that. That'd be fantastic.
But the title of it, it is A Pinch in the Hourglass. And the reason I call it that is that I don't know if you've watched any Jim Jarmusch films.
No.
Ghost Dog is one of his. Night on Earth. But basically, a lot of his movies are about time and the way time works. Down by Law, where Down by Law, there were 5 prisoners or a few prisoners, and they were in jail at the same time, and their lives sort of came to that point, and then what happened after. And I like the idea of the stories that we have, the people that we meet, the areas that we connect are in the pinch of the hourglass. I mean, just as a quick poll, like where you grew up in Baltimore?
Just south of Baltimore.
Okay, and Tasha?
Hereford. So.
And go around the room. Who grew up where? You were East Coast. You're Connecticut or
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts and
Maryland, near Annapolis.
And I grew up in Indianapolis. So like the likelihood of all of us meeting
in Chicago, of all places.
And Chicago is, I mean, it would be pretty slim, right? But it also, the paths that we're on in our life in terms of what we do, also not as likely. But but when you do meet, it's like the disparate sands at the top of an hourglass, and they all cascade and they go to that pinch, and that's where the stories happen. That's where the most intense interaction happens, and then things can go their way once they leave.
The really interesting thing is that's the way this barn works.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why there's a podcast.
Interesting, yeah. So I mean, it all makes sense, and this is why every novel doesn't begin with the birth of a character, because you don't need to trace their entirety of the story. You just need to find out what's integral at this moment and what's happening in the now. So it's a pinch in the hourglass because I feel like it's a road trip story, and everything is about, I mean, like during your week when you're at home, you're like, oh, I should get gas this week because I'm, maybe about half a tank, but I'll get to it. But if you're at a quarter of a tank on the road, well, you probably should get to a gas station now because that is your conveyance. That's where you live right now. And if you're hungry, you eat then. You don't make a plan for it later. Like everything is much more immediate on the road.
Okay.
And one of the things that the opening for this podcast talks about the detours, the unexpected turns.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, this will be great when we do talk about the novel.
So when you're ready to do that, let us know.
Yeah, for sure.
I think with that, our treadmill people have probably fallen off their treadmills and gone through the drywall.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, freaking Kyle and his monsters. So
this is my drywaller Kyle and his brother Kyle and his other brother Kyle.
Daryl, and Daryl. Thank you very much for listening. As always, we know you have choices. There's things like watching paint dry and grass grow and things like that.
Those are both future episodes.
Yes, absolutely ones.
Don't forget staring at the sun. That's always a fun time.
Oh God, Jesus.
It's pretty colors.
All right, and a huge thank you to Hot Todd for coming out. Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was a delight. I'm glad to be here.
This is fantastic. So, good night from me.
Night.
Night.
Good night.
And good night.
Good night. Take care, all. Thank you for listening. You're all awesome.